Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking how to do long division, how to take a three-digit number like 816 and divide it by 6 using the long division standard algorithm. Okay, so the 4 steps of the long division standard algorithm are divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down, otherwise known as dad, mom, sister, brother, or any other kind of funny little acronym you can think of to memorize this. Some learners and teachers will also include R. R can stand for repeat or for remainder, depending on what step you are in the process. So I'm going to include this here as well. So dad, mom, sister, brother, Rover. Rover is for the dog's name in the family. All right, so let's go ahead and start on this. Now, my first step you may have noticed is divide. That means I need to figure out how many times 6 can go into 8 without going past 8. So that means how many 6s does it take me to get to 8 without going past 8? So if I want to, I can make a list of 6s over on the side if that helps me. 6, 12, 12 plus 6 is 18, 18 plus 6 is 24. Maybe I just do a few to start out. What I can see is that 8 falls somewhere in between 6 and 12. So that means that it would take me 1 6 to get to 8, but if I use 2 6s, I would be at 12, which is past 8. So that means I'm going to use 1 over here. 6 goes into 8 one time. Now let me get rid of that and cross off the division. Now we're going to do multiplication. So multiplying is where you take the number you just put at the top and multiply it by the number you're dividing by. So 1 times 6 is 6, and it's going to go right here under the 8. Okay, and that would be the multiplication step. Now my next step is to subtract. So I'm going to take 8 and subtract 6. That will give me 2. So that is the subtraction step. My next step is to bring down. So I'm going to bring down the 1 and place it right next to the 2, making it 21. Now, the R reminds me to repeat these steps if I'm not finished with the problem yet. So I'm going to go back up to the top and repeat. I'm also going to change my color just so you guys can see the individual steps. My next step is to divide, but this time I want to figure out how many times 6 goes into 21. So I'm going to go back to my list. Now, you may already know off the top of your head how many times 6 would go into 21, and that's great. If you don't, you can go back to your list, and you can see that 21 is somewhere in between 18 and 24. That would take me 1, 2, 3 6s to get there. So I'm going to put a 3 right here on the top, and that is the division step. My next step is to multiply, multiplying the number I just put on the top, which is 3, times the number I'm dividing by. So it's going to be 3 times 6, which equals 18. Okay, so that was the multiplication step. Now my next step is S for subtract. So I'm going to subtract 21 minus 18, which should give me 3. Subtraction done. My next step is to bring down. So I'm going to bring down that 6, and I'm going to put it right next to the 3, making that 36. Now the R is there to remind me to repeat my steps. So I'm going to go back up to the top and start with division again. Now I need to see how many times 6 goes into 36. Well, my list doesn't go to 36. So what I need to do is maybe extend my list. Now, if you happen to know how many times 6 goes into 36 off the top of your head, that's great. You don't need to have a list. But if you're not sure, you can have a list to help you. So 24 plus 6 is 30. And 30 plus 6 is 36. Aha, that is exactly the number we're looking for. So I'm going to stop the list there. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6s that got me to 36. So I'm going to put a 6 up here at the top, and that was the division step. My next step is to multiply. So I'm going to multiply the number I just put on the top times the number I'm dividing by. In this case, that would be 6 times 6, which equals 36. Okay, so I'm going to delete those and cross off whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Cross off the multiplication step. There we go. My next step is to subtract. So I'm going to subtract these two numbers. 36 minus 36 is 0. Okay, now my next step is to bring down, but the problem is there are no more numbers to bring down. So I'm going to cross that off. And now the R reminds us to check for a remainder. In this case, there are no remainders. We have a remainder of 0. So that means our final answer on this would be 136.